Welcome to the ISTEP Plus Grade 10 Accommodations Training for Test Administrators. This training is intended to support test administrators in management of testing accommodations and to minimize the use of inappropriate test settings during test administration. For successful management of accommodations, test administrators must be familiar with the students they serve for the test administration. We also reevaluated all accommodations to ensure appropriateness. An accommodation is a change in the testing materials or procedures that enables students to participate in a way that measures abilities. An accommodation cannot change the construct that is being measured. Remember, a construct is that knowledge or skill related to the academic standard which we are measuring. It is important to evaluate each accommodation to ensure the validity of the construct. Accommodations are provided along with universal features and designated features so that all students are offered a more equitable opportunity to show what they know and can do. As you will see throughout this training, different tools, features, and supports are offered for many student groups to support individual student needs. Accommodations can only be provided to students who have special plans on file. Providing an accommodation to a student who does not have that accommodation listed in his or her plan almost always results in a test invalidation. The special plans that provide accommodations for students are Individual Education Plans, IEPs, Section 504 plans, Individual Language Plans, ILPs, Choice Special Education Plans, CSEPs, or Service Plans, SPs, which are public districts providing services to special education students attending accredited non-public schools. IDOE released the 2019-2020 Accessibility and Accommodations Guidance to provide direction regarding what accessibility features and accommodations can be provided to different populations of students. This guidance is a component of the 2019-2020 Indiana Assessment Policy Manual. Please reference this document at the link provided to fully understand the supports that can be provided for students. It is expected that test administrators are thoroughly familiar with accommodations and guidance prior to administering an assessment. What accommodations are available for the ISTEP Plus assessments? This slide shows the list of accommodations provided. Text-to-speech is the only embedded accommodation for ISTEP Plus. By embedded, we mean provided by the online testing platform. The other accommodations are non-embedded or provided locally by the test administrator. Some additional accommodations are listed on this slide. If you have a student who has provided any of these accommodations, be sure that you read the portion of the accommodations guide that talks about that accommodation. What do I need to do to prepare myself to correctly provide student accommodations during testing? First, obtain a list of your students' accommodations. You can usually get this from your special education director, your testing coordinator, or the student's special education teacher of record. Second, check to make sure those accommodations are correctly displayed and tied. Your testing coordinator may do this for you, but it is ultimately the test administrator's responsibility to ensure correct accommodations are provided at the time of testing. If you find that a student's test settings are incorrect, contact your testing coordinator for assistance. Do not allow the student to test until accommodations are correctly assigned. If students test with incorrect accommodations, test scores may be invalidated. Non-embedded accommodations are not provided to students by the testing platform. They must be provided by the test administrator. Before providing non-embedded accommodations, review all applicable guidelines in the Accessibility and Accommodations Guidance document and in the test administrator's manual. You want to be familiar with what types of supports are allowed and what is not allowed. Then gather needed materials. For example, be sure assistive technology is available, special seating is arranged, or other supports are on hand and ready for use. Provide the accommodations at the time of testing. Remember, accommodations are intended to mirror what the student is doing in the classroom, so students should not be interacting with accommodations for the first time on a high-stakes assessment. Finally, be sure to document your provision of the required accommodations. Calculator guidance for ISTEP Plus has been updated from previous administrations. For online test sessions that allow calculator use, students may use the online Desmos calculator or a handheld calculator that meets the criteria published in the calculator policy. A screenshot of the Desmos calculator is provided on the screen. Students with the calculator accommodation may additionally use a handheld calculator on the non-calculator allowed section of the mathematics assessment if it is indicated on their IEP, Section 504, or service plan. Please note that the testing system will not supply the calculator on the non-calculator allowed section of the assessment for any student, even a student with this accommodation. The calculator accommodation is not embedded and requires that students access their own handheld calculators. The text-to-speech and human reader accommodations meet the same student need. However, human reader requires individualized testing. Text-to-speech is provided with online assessments, and the human reader is provided with paper test. Remember that an accommodation is an alteration in the standardized testing materials or procedures that allows students with a disability to participate in the assessment while still measuring the intended construct. Because of this, only portions of the assessment are read aloud to students. The assessment must also be read aloud in a standardized fashion. For these reasons, TAs must not stray from the read aloud script when providing this accommodation. TAs must not read the online test aloud to students. Online testers must use the embedded text-to-speech tools. And finally, TAs must not use the read aloud script with the online assessment. All of these incorrect practices will result in test invalidations. Test administrators must scribe or transcribe student responses when providing the Braille, scribe, or computer-generated response accommodations. Be sure to follow all instructions in Section 6 of the accommodations guidance when scribing or transcribing student responses. If you have any questions about accommodations, be sure to talk to your test coordinator prior to testing. You can also contact the Indiana Department of Education, Karen Davies, at email and phone number listed on the screen. This concludes our training. Thank you for your attention.